In a world of shifting alliances and economic chess moves, some resources are more than just commodities. They are the bedrock of our modern lives. Today, we're talking about a group of 17 elements that power everything from your smartphone to the most advanced military hardware, rare earths. Just this week, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced that a critical deal with China on these very materials will, in his words, hopefully be done by Thanksgiving.
Is China holding back rare earth magnets from companies tied to the U.S. military right now?
Yeah, Maria, I think that Wall Street Journal reporting is not very accurate. We haven't even finished the agreement, which we hope to have done by Thanksgiving. And I am confident that post our meeting in Korea between the two leaders, President Trump, President Xi, that China will honor their agreements. Xi Jinping has great respect for President Trump. The meeting was conducted very high level, and I am confident that they will honor their agreement. And if they don't, we have lots of levers. But to come out and say this before the agreement's even inked, I think is irresponsible.
This comes after a framework agreement was struck in late October, pulling both nations back from the brink of a trade war over these vital resources. But what does this deal truly mean for the United States? Is it a strategic victory that secures American interests? Or is it merely a temporary truce that papers over a deep and dangerous vulnerability? In this episode, we'll unpack the benefits, the losses, and the high-stakes future of America's reliance on China for the elements that define the 21st century. Before we dive into the deal itself, it's crucial to understand why these minerals are so important. Despite their name, rare earths aren't geologically scarce. Their strategic value comes from the complex and often polluting process of mining, and more importantly, refining them into usable materials. And for the past 3 decades, one country has systematically built a near-total monopoly over this entire value chain, China. According to multiple analyses, China controls roughly 70% of global rare earth mining, but a staggering 90% of the processing and refining. This dominance gives Beijing immense leverage. As the London School of Economics noted, this was a deliberate strategy summed up by Deng Xiaoping's 1992 declaration. The Middle East has oil, and China has rare earths. Let me put this in perspective. These 17 elements, with exotic names like neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium, are essential for creating the powerful permanent magnets used in electric vehicle motors, wind turbine generators, and military guidance systems. They're in your smartphone, your laptop, and in the F-35 fighter jets that form the backbone of American air superiority. For some of these elements, particularly dysprosium and samarium, which are crucial for military applications, China's refinement dominance reaches an astonishing 99%. Think about what this means in practical terms. Every electric vehicle requires several pounds of rare earth magnets. A single wind turbine can contain hundreds of pounds. In military systems, an F-35 fighter jet uses approximately 920 pounds of rare earth materials. Without these elements, modern defense systems simply cannot function at the level required for 21st century warfare. This leverage became a clear and present danger when Beijing announced new export controls in October, threatening to require government approval for any product containing even a tiny fraction of Chinese rare earths, as little as 0.1% by weight. This sent shockwaves through industries in the United States, from defense contractors building F-35 fighter jets to the companies manufacturing wind turbines and electric vehicles. The implications were stark. China could potentially track and control the flow of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of high-tech products worldwide. It is against this backdrop that the new agreement was forged. So, what exactly is on the table? According to a White House fact sheet, the deal is essentially a 1-year truce. China has agreed to suspend its planned export controls and will issue general licenses for the export of rare earths and other critical minerals, including gallium, germanium, antimony, and graphite, to U.S. end users and their suppliers around the world. This effectively removes the controls China has imposed since 2023. In return, the United States will lower some tariffs and suspend certain regulatory actions against China. Specifically, the U.S. agreed to reduce tariffs on Chinese imports by 10 percentage points, bringing the overall rate down from 41% to 31%, and to suspend heightened reciprocal tariffs until November 2026. It's a classic de-escalation, a step back from the edge. But this deal wasn't just about rare earths. It's part of a broader package that addresses multiple flashpoints in the U.S.-China relationship. China also committed to halt the flow of fentanyl precursors into the United States, end retaliation against U.S. semiconductor manufacturers, and purchase significant quantities of American agricultural products, including at least 12 million metric tons of soybeans in the final 2 months of 2025 and 25 million metric tons annually through 2028. So, what are the immediate benefits for the United States? The most significant gain is time. This one-year agreement provides critical breathing room. It averts an immediate supply chain crisis that could have crippled key sectors of the U.S. economy. As the credit insurance group Coface puts it, this is a tactical agreement allowing the United States to gain time to diversify its sources of rare earth supplies. And the U.S. desperately needs this time. Consider the scale of American dependence. In 2024, the United States imported 80% of the rare earths it used. The country has only one major operational rare earth mine, the Mountain Pass facility in California, about 60 miles from Las Vegas. While the U.S. has estimated reserves of about 3.6 million tons of rare earths, and Canada has over 14 million tons, this pales in comparison to China's 44 million tons. More critically, even if America mines these materials, it lacks the processing infrastructure to turn them into usable products. This window allows American companies to stockpile these essential materials and, more importantly, gives the U.S. government and private industry a chance to accelerate efforts to build alternative supply chains. We're already seeing this with the Pentagon's investment in the Mountain Pass mine. In July, the Department of Defense became the largest shareholder in MP Materials, the company that operates the facility, with plans to open a new mine-to-magnet plant to produce magnets crucial for F-35 fighter jets, drones, and submarines. Beyond domestic production, the Trump administration has been aggressively pursuing international partnerships. During his recent Asia trip, the president signed an $8.5 billion deal with Australia for industrial cooperation and joint investment to build rare earth processing capacity outside China. He also reached agreements with Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia aimed at diversifying supply chains and strengthening regional industrial collaboration. There's even a deal with Ukraine, which has significant rare earth deposits, though many are still in early stages of extraction. These international partnerships represent a fundamental shift in American strategy. Rather than trying to achieve complete self-sufficiency, which would be prohibitively expensive and time-consuming, the U.S. is building what analysts call friendshoring, creating resilient supply chains among trusted allies and partners. This approach recognizes that in a globalized economy, the goal isn't independence, but rather reducing dangerous over-reliance on any single source, especially a geopolitical rival. There are also tangible economic benefits beyond rare earths. The deal includes commitments from China to purchase more U.S. agricultural products like soybeans, which is a welcome relief for American farmers caught in the trade war crossfire. However, it's worth noting that while Beijing has committed to significant purchases, the volumes remain below historical averages, and China continues to pursue a substitution strategy, increasingly sourcing agricultural products from Brazil and other suppliers. The deal also provides a degree of stability that might slow the rush of manufacturing companies to move their assembly lines out of China. The narrowing of tariff differentials could temporarily make it less urgent for companies to relocate to third countries like Vietnam or India, giving both American and Chinese businesses some predictability in their planning. In short, the deal is a successful defensive maneuver. It neutralizes an immediate threat and buys the U.S. a precious one-year window to address its underlying weaknesses. However, it is crucial to recognize what this deal is not. It is not a long-term solution. The consensus among analysts is that this is a tactical truce, not a strategic shift. The fundamental problem, America's deep structural dependence on China, remains firmly in place. This is perhaps the biggest loss for the United States. The deal doesn't change the strategic reality. China still holds the cards. Its dominance over the processing and magnet manufacturing stages of the supply chain is unshaken. Think about this. China controls 60% of global extraction, 87% of processing, 91% of metal production, and a staggering 94% of permanent magnet manufacturing, especially the neodymium iron boron magnets that are vital for electric vehicles, wind turbines, advanced electronics, and defense applications. The agreement is fragile. It's a one-year pause, and China retains the power to reimpose restrictions at any time, holding the U.S. economy and national security hostage. The very rules that sparked this crisis have been postponed, not dismantled, and history suggests that China is willing to use this leverage. In 2010, during a territorial dispute with Japan, China abruptly halted exports of rare earth elements, laying bare the vulnerabilities in global supply chains. That incident sent rare earth prices soaring and served as a wake-up call to the world about the dangers of concentrated supply chains. Furthermore, rebuilding a domestic supply chain is a monumental task. The United States has ceded decades of manufacturing capacity and expertise to China. As experts cited by The Guardian have noted, it takes years, not months, to bring new mines online and build the complex refining facilities needed to compete. It's a steep relearning curve, and all the while the U.S. will be competing with China's entrenched scale, lower costs, and state-supported industry. And here's the economic challenge. China has historically driven American competitors out of business by manipulating prices. When the U.S. or other countries have tried to develop their own rare earth industries in the past, China has simply lowered prices, making these ventures uneconomic. Without sustained government support and industrial policy, American companies struggle to compete against China's state-backed approach. This is why the Pentagon's direct investment in MP Materials is so significant. It represents a recognition that market forces alone won't solve this strategic vulnerability. There's also a technological dimension to this vulnerability. China doesn't just control the materials, it controls the know-how. Over decades, China has accumulated deep technical expertise, covering not just the processing of rare earths, but also the equipment, tooling, and tacit knowledge essential for large-scale production. Western economies, having outsourced this capacity, now face the challenge of not just rebuilding facilities, but rebuilding the human expertise and institutional knowledge that was lost. You can't simply build a factory and flip a switch. You need skilled workers, experienced managers, and refined processes that take years to develop. This deal, therefore, highlights a stark vulnerability. It's a temporary patch on a deep wound. The United States has secured a reprieve, but the clock is ticking. And rare earths are just the tip of the iceberg. Similar patterns of Chinese dominance exist for other critical minerals: lithium, cobalt, graphite, magnesium, tungsten, gallium, and germanium. This reflects a broader geopolitical strategy where Beijing has leveraged resource control for economic and strategic influence. As global demand for these materials accelerates, driven by the transition to clean energy, the rise of artificial intelligence, and the ongoing wave of global rearmament, the intersection between resource security, technological sovereignty, and geopolitical rivalry is becoming a defining feature of the 21st century economy. Research from the London School of Economics shows that companies worldwide are increasingly flagging risks linked to critical minerals in their financial disclosures. Exposure to these supply chain vulnerabilities has been associated with lower revenue growth, particularly in clean technology sectors. The uncertainty around pricing and access is causing firms to scale back output and investment, which could slow the very technological transitions that these minerals are meant to enable. This creates a troubling paradox. The materials needed to build a sustainable, high-tech future are controlled by dynamics that make that future less certain. According to the OECD, the number of export restrictions on critical materials has increased more than fivefold between 2009 and 2023. In 2023 alone, over 500 new raw material products were added to the list of products with at least one restriction, with 94% of these additions originating from just 7 countries, with China playing the largest role. This trend toward resource nationalism is accelerating, not slowing down. What does this mean for the average American? Well, if the U.S. fails to build alternative supply chains, we could see higher prices for everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. We could see delays in the deployment of renewable energy infrastructure. Most concerning, we could see vulnerabilities in our national defense capabilities. The military applications of rare earths aren't just about fighter jets. They're in precision-guided munitions, radar systems, satellite communications, and countless other technologies that underpin American military superiority. So, will the U.S. benefit or lose from this deal? The answer is both. In the short term, it's a clear benefit. It averts a crisis and provides a crucial window of opportunity. But in the long term, the deal's success will not be judged by the ink on the paper, but by how effectively the United States uses the time it has bought. Will this one-year truce lull America into a false sense of security? Or will it serve as the final wake-up call needed to rebuild its industrial commons and secure its technological future? The race is on. This isn't just about a handful of obscure minerals, it's about the new era of strategic interdependence, where control over even a few grams of material can influence the destiny of nations. The United States has a choice. Use this year to make meaningful progress towards supply chain resilience, or squander the opportunity and find itself back at the negotiating table in an even weaker position. The stakes couldn't be higher. This is about economic competitiveness, national security, and technological leadership in the decades to come. History will judge this moment not by the deal itself, but by what America does with the breathing room it provides. The question isn't whether the U.S. can reduce its dependence on China for rare earths. It's whether it has the political will, the industrial strategy, and the sustained commitment to do so. 1 year may seem like a long time, but in the world of mining, processing, and manufacturing, it's barely enough to lay the groundwork for what needs to be a multi-decade effort. The path forward requires not just government action, but a whole-of-society approach. It requires sustained investment, patient capital, workforce development, and a recognition that some strategic capabilities are worth preserving even if they're not immediately profitable. It requires thinking beyond quarterly earnings and election cycles to consider what kind of industrial base America needs for long-term security and prosperity. Thank you. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that in the modern world, the smallest elements can have the biggest impact.
Yeah.